streamed into and also will be uploaded to YouTube. So I'm the host for this evening, and I'm joined by 4 other wise elder women from the Silver Tent. 3 wise elder women from the Silver Tent. And the Silver Tent is a space where women over the age of 50 can gather together and explore this second part, or whatever you want to call it, part of our life, and share our wisdom, which is worth sharing, and also challenge the myth of the older woman. So tonight's conversation, or today's, wherever you are, is all around selfish or self-care and the journey to our no, because a lot of us will have had a journey to finding our no. And so I'd like to invite the other panel members to introduce ourselves and take it in turn to say who we are, where we are, and a little bit around what we love to do and also what drew us to this conversation. So I'm wondering who would like to start us off.
Shall I jump in? Okay, you go, Cassandra, you start.
Okay, thanks, Renette. I'm Cassandra Eve. Why was I drawn to this call? Well, I've been part of one of Sundy's panels for Silver Tent TV before, and I've really enjoyed it. Enjoy the exploration of the different things. I work as a sacred feminine soul coach, as an astrologer and women's retreat facilitator. And I love to share that journey of being a woman growing consciously, whatever that means to you. I also love to travel. So at the moment I'm in Tenerife for a month, and I'm very blessed to be able to work online. So I'm getting some winter sun. I'm warming my bones because the damp Cornish winters where I live, especially since I've lost a lot of weight, they really get to me. So I'm feeling very, very thankful to be in warm sunshine at a very wonderful bohemian, hippie windsurfing resort in Tenerife. So it suits me down to the ground. Anything else? Did you ask another question, Sunday?
No, yeah, that'll do, and that's great. And just to let you know that yeah, thank you. And just to let you know that your sound is a little bit muffled. We didn't sort of pick that up at the beginning, but I don't know if you can do anything about it. But I know that your connection is a little bit wobbly, isn't it?
It could be a bit wobbly because I'm in a hotel at the moment. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll just turn the volume up. Hopefully, it will.
Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah, thanks, Cassandra. Yeah. Do you want to go, Renette? You were jumping in.
Well, I was just offering to bridge the gap. I'm Renette Hansbeer-Knell, and I live in South Africa near Cape Town, in the rural area outside Cape Town. And Cassandra, I have the heat too much. Thank you. We've 37 degrees this past week, and 34 today was a wonderful cool 28. And I actually prefer a more mild climate. But I don't envy your very cold up in the UK and in Europe. My children, eldest daughter is in China, and they are coming to visit, and they will be defrosting, they said. They love it hot. So I am a life alchemist, something which we actually all are. And I facilitate light mavericks, those inspired creatives who are lighting the world by bringing into being that which they love. And I facilitate them to amplify and expand their own ability to radiate their light and to consistently create what they love. I'm really, I can't find the words, but passionate isn't even really the word. But for me, living consciously, evolving our consciousness is our next evolutionary step as far as I'm concerned. We're not going to lose a digit. We're going to evolve our consciousness. And doing so consciously and taking part in that and creating the new earth, we're actually in the chaos of the disintegrated old paradigm. And that chaos is going to create there'll be a new order, and we are all creating that new order. And so helping people to find their balance, to find that ability to shine their inner light and to create what they love, because by creating from our heart, we're actually helping the earth and lighting the world, is what I am seriously passionate about. I used to make candles for 28 years, sand candles, where you pour wax into hot sand, and when you dig it out, you've got a candle. And my logo was Light the World. And I'm doing that through mentoring and coaching and facilitating and workshops and so on. The details are on my web. So that's it in a nutshell of what drew me here to participate and take up Sundy's invitation. And thanks, Sundy, for that and for hosting us here. Was that I have had quite a journey in learning to practice self-care and also to saying no, because my husband has Parkinson's disease. He's in his 22nd year since diagnosed, and pretty well, he can't really be left on his own anymore. He does need caring. He can do some things for himself. He's strong for about 4 or 5 hours out of 24. I nearly said 25. I wish we had 25 hours. And in that time, he will brush his teeth or dress himself or do some of the small mundane things that we take for granted every single day. He can literally not turn over in bed at night. So learning, I actually stopped. I cared for him for 37 months on my own until I fainted, and then realized something's got to give, and not me, preferably. And learning to find that balance between when to say no to, like, for instance, caring for him on my own because of the cost of getting carers in, and caring for myself while having to care for him. And even now that we have living carers, I still have to learn to care for myself, because and it's more than just having time out. It's also wearing clothes that you love. It's so much. And the topic really drew me, because it is very hard for us to learn to get to that point where we recognize that it is essential to care for us, each one of us. And if we don't care for us, we're not there to care for others anymore. The day I fainted, I could not help my husband. And luckily he was able to eventually bring me my phone. Well, and after I'd come around, and I could phone our daughter, and she then phoned people to help us. So that's the reason I'm here, is to share that, and I'm sorry, I've sort of got carried away, to share that we absolutely have to care for ourselves. And when we care for ourselves, we can say no, but sometimes when we want to say no, we still have to do the things. And then learning how to care for ourselves despite that, and not we being selfish and feeling guilty. That's the important thing. Sorry, are you interrupting me?
Yeah, no, I'm not interrupting. I'm going.
I heard a sound, and I thought you were stopping me, Sundy. I'm so used to you on telling me, "Dis nou genoeg," as we say in Afrikaans. That's enough now.
Well, you can say no. I haven't finished yet.
Of course I could, yes, but I'm now being very, very aware of that you are hosting this, and that there's a time frame, and that all of us want to speak.
Thank you.
So, Diane, I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thanks, Renette. So I'm based in the south of England, and so I live near the sea, which I love, because that gives me lots of self-care, because I love the sound of the herring gulls when they're around, and I love the smell of the salt in my washing when I bring it in off the washing line. even if it has freeze dried, as it has been recently, which has been wonderful. I love freeze dried clothes. That used to happen a lot when I lived in Scotland. It was great. So what do? I walk alongside people. Others have described me as a gifted seer. I do see stuff, always have done ever since I was a child. I'm also a soul companion these days. And years ago, I realized my purpose in life, in this lifetime anyway, is to ease people on their soul paths, whether they're incarnate, discarnate, or passing over. I work with them on all levels. But bringing me on to why am I here today? Back in the 90s, before I discovered this purpose as a conscious thing, I was doing stuff. I was living up in the northeast of Scotland, fabulous place, amazing, overlooking the sea, wonderful. And I started running self-esteem workshops because I realized there was a need for it. I mean, people were doing assertiveness, and I thought, no. There's something else here. There's something beneath that, beyond that, because you can be assertive as a mouse, or you can be assertive as a lion. That's fine. The problem was a lot of people were trying to pretend they were a lion when they were actually a mouse. But mouse assertiveness, not a problem. Mice are pretty amazing. So it's like helping people to really find that authentic core of who they were, working with them, doing these self-esteem workshops. It attracted a lot of women, but I was really surprised. I loved it because, of course, it turned my prejudice on its head when I had men coming along saying, this is great. And I'm like, oh, okay. I thought it would be women it would just attract, and it didn't. Fabulous. So there was also a thread there as well, of we teach what we need, as the old saying, isn't it? And in the 90s was when my marriage was basically breaking down. And by the end of the 90s, I was apart from my son's father. And that's okay. It's all okay. It's all how it meant to be, and it's all worked out great. But this self-esteem stuff's really important. And obviously this whole self-care, and so many women, I mean, I often say, there's a lot of women who will put their partner, children, dog, cat, budgerigar, and everybody else first, and then they come in last. And then I say, and you wonder why you're knackered and all of that. And it's like, yeah. So that's definitely true. There's definitely a bias towards women in that, in my experience anyway, that there's more women who tend to do it in that way. So yeah, it's important stuff. Yeah. And I will stop there.
Yeah, so last but not least, me. My name's Sundy. I'm up in Yorkshire. And I was quite fascinated how I'm at the top and Renette's right down at the bottom of the globe. I'm the northern one, Diane, and then Cassandra, and then Renette. And yeah, why? And this topic really appealed to me. What I love to do is I support parents mainly in coming to terms with the loss of their children through estrangement. That is not something that I had on my vision board at all. And it's through my own experience as well of my children, my adult children not speaking with me. And I've always been fascinated by relationships and communication, and how communication is such a wobbly bridge. And I'm just really interested in how we get to communicate really healthily with each other. And there's bags of information out there, and exploring how to do it differently to how I was sort of my experience as a younger person in a family that did it in a particular way, and I do communicate very differently to how I was, and I'm sure we all do. It's just I've taken it as a topic of deep interest. How do we get our wants met in relationship where both people are getting a win-win situation? So this topic really appeals to me because as you we've all said just now, you know, it does tend to be women. We do tend to put ourselves underneath and last, and we're trained, I think, to put other people's needs and wants first. And although I was a feisty youngster and did have a strong no, it wasn't really a sort of very elegant no. It had elbows attached to it. And defiance and resistance. And I've learned that actually that didn't work. You know, I might have a strong no, but like you were saying, Dan, it wasn't assertive, it was more aggressive and underpinning this self-esteem thing and my sense of self-worth and feeling selfish saying no and having a self-judgment around that. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me and why I'm here. And I love hosting these, you know. I've got a long list of topics and I know that there's other women who want to host as well. This Silver Tent TV seems to be really sparking up a lot of interest and participation. So I've got some questions. We got together and we talked a little bit about what we might ask, what we might talk to. And so I've got a couple that are written down and then we might just, it flows as this type of conversation. But the first one that I've got was let's take it back for us personally. Why was it? And sometimes why is it still, if it is, hard for us to say no?
Because
Well,
I
can
care.
Cassandra, you and I are absolutely
We're on the
synchronous.
button, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's because
You
I'm
go
just we're directly aligned on the globe, you know. South Africa and countries not very far apart. Do you want to go?
Yeah, shall I? I just wanted to, now I've forgotten what I want to say, so you go ahead.
Okay. You know, for me, in a nutshell, I find it difficult to say no still sometimes because I care.
Oh, you're going to have to say that again. It's right at that moment, it went blah, 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 blah.
Because I care.
Mm.
Yeah, it's hard to say no sometimes because I care. So then it's like I'm holding the yes and the no and have to kind of sit with it and see, well, what are my deepest values? And what are the circumstances calling for? Because sometimes life brings us situations where it's not about the me or the you, it's about what serves love, what serves the situation, yeah? Particularly when it involves relationships. So for me, sometimes I've actually learned, because I'm a very kind of instantaneous reactive yes or no, but I've actually had to learn to wait sometimes and reflect and to make friends with my maybe, rather than there being that immediate response, and to just look and see what is really called for here with consciousness. So yeah, I mean, the no is used to be because I couldn't say no, because my pattern was caretaking for my brother and sister who were twins, nearly 3 years younger than me, because that was the programming that I came in with. You know, there's all those reasons, but now it's more about looking to see what is really, really needed. And also I've become aware that the no and the yes are really linked. So if I'm saying no out here, I'm actually saying yes here. And sometimes when I'm saying yes out there, I might be saying no here. And sometimes that's okay, and sometimes that's not okay. So it's complex, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I love what you say there around this. If I'm saying yes, I'm saying no to myself. And if I'm saying no, I'm saying yes to myself. Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Renette.
don't see that we can separate them.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I've remembered what I wanted to say, and it was simply, you know, this is my second marriage, and we'll be married 50 years in March. So it's a long history. of being used to being the one who sort of doesn't confront well, when I really want to say no. And now there's the added the extra thing of him becoming extremely shaky and weak, and you can't hear his voice. You can almost never hear his voice anyway when he is upset. So now it's difficult for me to say no in a number of circumstances because I'm not willing to handle the consequences of in the old days it would have been an explosion. Now it's the debilitationness that will occur when his emotions are in turmoil. It's no longer easy for us to have a conversation where I can express and he can, and we're pretty good at that. We wouldn't have been married 50 years and we deeply love each other if we hadn't been able to get, and we've had bumps, lots of bumps, but been able to get through that time when we need to let the other one know how we really, really, really feel and to choose how we want to respond and deal with that. So those are the times I find it the most difficult to say no when I don't really want to say yes to whatever the request is. And it's because I'm not willing to handle the results in the physiology and in the time frame. And that is where my sense that self-care, how I care for myself then there, is finding how to resource myself through my breath, through my thinking, through finding something beautiful that lifts me up, through other ways in which I'm not feeling the victim. Because that's really what we don't want to experience. We don't want to be, when you're saying no, yes, when you really want to say no, it's a slide, a very quick slip into being a martyr or a victim, and then it becomes almost like a habit and you're almost comfortable there. So I've learned many ways in which I can still be centered and be okay, so that even though I've said yes and I really don't want to, it can be great that I did say yes instead of the no that I really wanted to say to begin with. I don't know if that made sense.
There was something that you said that was something about this. I loved what you said, Cassandra, about it, that you care. And I thought, gosh, there is a part of me that cares. And also there's another part of me, which you sort of like twigged in for me, Renette, was about not feeling comfortable with the other person's reaction when I say no. Yeah. And you know, and I've realized that I've often not said no because I've safeguarded my own self from being upset because the other person gets upset. And I know that stems from when I was young. You know, my no wasn't heard at all as a child. I don't remember it. My primary memory was that I would say no, and it was just like, you know, and I'm sure that many of us as kids, we would say no, and it would probably get ignored. We'd get just shooed along or dragged along or whatever, you know, even if we didn't really want to do it and we were in tears. And I remember, you know, saying no and people being highly reactive. And it was quite startling, you know, that somebody would be so explosive around me saying no. And I also realized, you know, you were talking about martyrdom and that thing around aware that I'm sacrificing myself by saying yes when I really want to say no. And then this ball of resentment that grew. And then I'm cross with them because they've made me say yes when I really wanted to say no. And I thought, how unfair, you know, I've just said yes. This person is taking me at face value. And then I'm having bad thoughts about them for making me, it's very like messy, and it's all about feelings, isn't it? This is what it feels like to me. It's all about feelings. And yeah. So Diane, I don't know if where do you want to weave your bit into all of that cocktail?
I'm not sure, but I apologize in advance if I start coughing again. My tickle in my throat is just coming up. So yeah, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because how much are we doing stuff to make ourselves feel better, and how much are we actually coming from a place of congruence and genuine self-love? And there's a big difference there a lot
Shall
of
we
the
talk
time.
about that? That sounds a perfect next thing. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Just one thing that's come to mind. So there's obviously a reason for it. So maybe somebody who's watching this is needed for. But I described my self-esteem back in the early 90s as being like Swiss cheese. You know, it has those huge holes, and it kind of collapses quite easily on itself. Whereas once I'd done a huge amount of work helping others, which then helped me, I realized that my center, my core, my self-esteem was like a beautiful pillar of Turkish delight, because it was sweet, but it was firm. So it would give a bit, so it goes like this, but it doesn't collapse, which is where it gets into dangerous stuff when we do self-destructive things. So it's having that ability to kind of give, and yes, okay, today I will say yes, even though there's a challenge, because yeah, you're right, Minette, in all sorts of circumstances, we do want to, and in a way need to, for other reasons, but it's still not collapsing that part of us inside. So it's making sure we're still taking care of that core, but it's made up of Turkish delight for me. Okay, so there we go.
I love Turkish delight.
So do I. So you chose a good one there.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I was saying, as you were speaking, Diane, that when I fill my own cup up, which for me is about my spiritual well-being, then the yes and the no come much clearer. Because if I get that time, or make that space to fill my cup in whatever way, and sometimes it's only a few moments, it doesn't have to be a big time thing, although I do commit every morning to doing my practices, my mantra practice, my meditation and so on. I know that I'm starting the day in that place of spiritual well-being, deep well-being within myself, and congruence, as you spoke about, alignment with myself, with my divinity, whatever word you want to put on that the day will flow in a more congruent way than when I don't leap out of bed. I was going to say when I leap out of the bed and into the shower, but I don't actually ever do that. You know what I mean? When we start the day off wrong. So, that ethos of making space to fill my cup. And I remember my spiritual teacher once, many years ago, I don't have one particular one now, but this is when I was in community. And we were serving at one of those large mind, body, spirit festivals in Sydney or somewhere like that. And it was the most beautiful day, a day when you want to be on the beach or in the park or somewhere like that. And I remember him going out for 5 minutes and walking in the sun and just filling up with the sunshine, and then coming back in renewed and replenished from those few moments, fully immersed. And that's the key, really, is I know in my spiritual practices, my well-being practices, is to be fully with that rather than half with that and half what I think I need to be doing, because then I don't fill up. So having that, whatever that is for you, for a lot of people it's nature, it can be a spiritual practice, it can be a relationship practice. Having that fills your cup means that when you need to say yes or no, you know, it's more likely to be congruent in my experience.
Now it's coming to that point where you are in that stillness where you can say yes or no from that space. I think for most of our lives, we are struggling to know ourselves enough and to love ourselves enough and to care enough about ourselves to actually even be clear enough to have that sense of certainty about it's fine to say no here or it's fine to say yes here. So yeah, I love that.
And I don't know if for me, if there ever is certainty, it's in the moment, this is what's here, and then we see what flows from that. Because we never know how something's going to be received, really, do we?
Well,
Just know I'm in alignment.
I wonder though, Cassandra, because if we are the creators of our life, I'm sort of on this experiment of, I know for me that if I worry that my no is not going to be received well, you can bet your bottom dollar that it isn't. It's like the energy and the vibration that I have around the no, the anxiety that I feel of having to say it or, you know, do it. If I'm not in that, it's going to be fine. And it's easier to say no with certain people. You know, there's this group over here that it's really hard to say no to, or have any sort of like difficult or, you know, relationship thing. And then there's this other group of people where, you know, it's really easy because there's, if we're a bit more into our wholeness, people can receive things easier than people who are a bit still in their uncertainty around life and perhaps aren't quite so self-aware. And I have come to learn, and I don't always remember that, you know, there's a few tips and tricks of the trade that when I'm going on a change journey, if I'm going to practice something, you know, it's useful to tell the people around me that I love that I'm off on this adventure, you know, instead of doing it in secret and just saying, because when I change, other people have to adjust around me. So, you know, like letting people know that we're going on a no adventure, darling. So if I say no a little bit more, you know, because it's like you're getting people on board then, and it's like they know what you're trying to practice, and it's not quite so, oh my God, she's just saying no all the time, just lately, you know, and it's not quite such a shock. So I think there's something to be said around the fact that my vibration, I think if I'm worried that my no's not going to be received, it sometimes isn't. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised and it is. And I don't know, but, you know, is it my unconscious that's driving this bus or is it my conscious? And I don't really know, but I'm enjoying playing with it. Yeah.
I'm really with you. And what I was seeing when you were speaking was, for me, it's a difference between certainty and surety. So it's like my trust in myself is such that I can approach life not really knowing how it's going to be, but trusting in myself to respond as well as I can in the moment. And that's surety. Whereas certainty for me, and this is only the way I do it, is a belief in my mind that if I do it that way, it's all going to be okay, or that person's going to be okay with it, or whatever. So there's a subtle kind of veil between my feeling. It's more of a mental feeling than an embodied surety and self-trust in oneself, I feel, for me. Do you get what I'm saying? It's very subtle.
I like that surety. I've not thought of it like that because I always use certainty, and I like that surety. Because I'm not sure that anyway, we're going off down a different track, so I won't. Have you got anything to add in there, Diane, in between coughs?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, go on then.
It's no, it is this interesting thing, isn't it? I think it's back to that thing. It's a constant dance with ourselves, and one of the things about filling ourselves up, and that is so important, like, as you say, Cassandra, there's so many ways that we can do things to build ourselves in whatever way we need to do that, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is. And it's just keeping playing with that, you know, play with ourselves, be with ourselves, and then at the end of the day, it's about being prepared to be kind to ourselves and say, you did the best you could, girl. You know, what else could you have done? You know, because sometimes even when we answer really quickly and say yes when we mean no, or no when we mean yes, and then we get the fallout, whatever that might be, you know, and then we go, oh, why did I do that again? You know, it's like, yes, it's all right. You did the best you could that day, you know, because maybe that day you had got out of bed quick because you suddenly realized you're supposed to be at an appointment at, you know, whatever time, and you didn't have very long to do your shower, and you didn't have huge amount of time to do, you know, whatever practice you might do, and all of those other things that might have meant you were just not quite so wobbled that day. So, but the more we do it, I mean, all I can say from my perspective is the more I do it, whatever I do to help build myself up and build my core, because it's not build myself up, it's build myself within. And, you know, the more I do that, that's what matters, because you're less likely, I'm less likely to be wobbled in that same way. That's what I've noticed over the years.
This Turkish Delight column.
Yeah.
A few people commenting, Conchetta's and also Sue Bailey. I've really loved what you've said, Cassandra, about the surety. And Conchetta's gone, but I want the certainty. And Julia Catherine Smith, she's practicing strengthening your no, Julia, and sometimes finds it not so easy. Yeah, so those are the comments that are coming through. I've got another question that, Cassandra, you brought something around. Where is our no, yes, maybe located? And I wondered if you wanted to.
Yeah, that question came up in me in terms of the exploration we were doing before this event, and you were asking us for questions, and I was seeing there's so many places that our yes, no, or maybe can come from. But for me, when it's in congruence, it comes from the embodied heart, because the embodied heart is that knowing of the innate unity of myself and another. Because often the yes, no, or maybe involves another, doesn't it? It's relationship orientated often. Sometimes it's easier with ourselves, not always. So what is the embodied heart? Consciousness. You know, can I even answer that? And I was looking at that this afternoon when I was laying out in the sun, and I was recognizing, you know, when I was seeing it in three ways. I was seeing it as the heart and the kind of belly chakras, which is the feminine, you know, our body, our embodiment, our humanness, and then from the mind and the higher mind. And I was seeing that, you know, when I'm in my neediness, not to make that wrong, but that's, you know, it's a word that describes a certain state of being. When I'm in neediness, my yes and no, or yes or no maybe, is not coming from a conscious place. It's coming from the best place possible at the time. And when I'm in my old pattern beliefs, say my inheritance from my family was, you're the big one. You're the one who's responsible. You should know better. It's all your fault. All those kind of programs, you know, from eldest child. So when I'm in that patterned mind, then I also, you know, if I've got this belief in a certain situation that I'm responsible, whether I am or not, you know, it's a habit pattern to think it's my responsibility, then I'm not in my congruence. But when I'm in the heart and I can integrate my needs as a woman, yeah, my true needs as a woman, because we have needs as human beings, and my clarity of consciousness to recognize, oh, that's from my programming, that's from service, that serves the situation, then I can come into the heart and I can choose from an embodied place that is, it's kind of like I'm feeling, I can feel it now in my body. It's like an embrace. It's like the embrace of the Divine Mother that says all of it's okay. The yes, no, and the maybe are all okay, you know, and endeavour to come from your loving heart and your knowing of unity in that. And of course, that all sounds a bit abstract and airy-fairy, but that's the best way I can describe what I'm feeling. So I hope that comes across.
Yeah. I was listening to you, and you know, I once had to say a very strong no, and I felt that in my root chakra because I was under threat, and there was no doubt that that no was coming from that power place of really having to look after myself at that fundamental level from threat or attack. And I don't know, I've not felt it often in my life, and yet I've realized that my no has come from that place sometimes, because we live in a sort of violent world where people will try to take advantage and threaten us, and so yeah, it was a really quite profound feeling. You know, I can even remember where I was, who I was with. You know, it was like such a experience of no, you know, really strong. I don't know.
Absolutely. And similarly, I remember an experience on the beach in India when I was on my own. I told my partner, go off somewhere for the day. We were together for 3 months, day after day after day, and I just needed some space. I said, you go off. I'm going to the beach on my own. I was wearing my bikini. And this Indian man approached me for sex. You know, he thought because I was wearing a bikini. And my embodied no came up, as you say, you know, very clearly, very strong. It came up from the root, but it came through the heart because I could also see very clearly his misunderstanding. Here was a white woman on the beach, clear, protective, no. There was also this compassionate understanding of here are two people from different cultures with different backgrounds, different genders, and there's a misunderstanding. And he was very respectful. The minute that no came out, he was like, very sorry, like this, backing up the beach. You know? So, yeah, it's complicated, isn't it?
It's
Relationships are complex.
Well, I think that it's complicated because we kind of celebrating about it so much. Instead, we are really, I loved what Diane said, that we actually in a dance, and our daily life is a dance with ourselves, and others are reflecting to us who we really are. And so when we're saying no to somebody, we're saying no to an aspect of ourselves that we needing to see because we haven't owned that aspect in ourselves. And we forget that, and I think media and our movies and everything adds to that fact that we forget. We forget we are embodied souls and we are born as creators, and none of this is anything but love. So whether you think you're hurting somebody or whether you think you're supporting somebody, you're actually hurting and supporting elements of yourself, and they just helping you know yourself, because the more your feelings give you the nudge as to where you're at, the more you learn who you really are, and the more you know who you really are, the less important it becomes to you, whether you are saying being self-caring or selfish when you say no, or the opposite. So I feel so strongly that we have often started dissecting things and trying to analyze things when actually we're just living in the moment. We are experiencing and living and expressing, and they like to say you must be the best version of yourself. You're always the best version of yourself. Even when you saying no and if I say no to Johan and he has a whole reaction, I'm still being the best version of myself. I'm not being selfish. Or if I say yes and I should really have said no because I need to have said yes to me, as you pointed out, Diane, Cassandra earlier, I'm just being me, and me, all of the time is the best version of myself. And this trying to work this out is interesting, but the reality is there is no answer. We're looking for a rule book. We're looking for a way in which you should behave, and you should behave the way you are actually behaving right then and there.
Yeah, thank you, Cassandra. Renette.
We are getting confused.
Us two are in pink and you two are in blue.
I saw that. We're in the pink and the blue, the male and female in colours, and we're balancing that.
Questions popping up all over the place. But Dan, have you got anything you want to spin into that?
I'm not sure. Interesting. Where does my yes, no, and maybe come from? It always comes from stuff, doesn't it? Whether it's this life, previous life, stuff that happened as a kid, stuff that happens as an adult. Our responses to what the response of the other one was, or whatever, and all that stuff. It's back to that spinning, dancing, kind of playing with. Yeah, I think one of my deepest things that I've really connected so strongly with over the last few years has been Guan Yin, the bodhisattva of compassion, because there's an amazing pool of Guan Yin energy underneath where I live. I discovered during COVID, and I just sat with it, and just sitting within that and just listening to mantras being chanted. There's a wonderful YouTube one that I just really hook into, and it's just beautiful. And it's just that ultimately just be kind to ourselves, which is really, Renette, what you were saying, because you are being the best you can be, you are your best self. And I know it's so easy for people to judge themselves or others and go, well, they weren't really behaving nicely. That wasn't very kind, was it? When actually all it was you just didn't give them the answer they wanted. Then all of a sudden they're just putting that label on it as being, that's not kind. Well, no, it's just not the answer you wanted.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it kind or not, it's, yeah. And it can be tricky. I mean, what you're saying there, Sunday, about, giving people a heads up that you're likely to be changing your responses or doing things differently can be, I think that sounds sensible, especially in long-term relationships. If you want it to survive. Of course, if you don't want it to, it doesn't matter. But, if you do, then it's maybe excuse me, darling, you might find I don't quite do some things the way I did before. Yeah. It's interesting. It's lovely food for thought. Thank you, everybody. It's really great. I always love these conversations and the kind of richness and everything. Yeah.
So a little question is, how do you handle other people's no's? How have you been around being on the receiving end?
That's been a massive journey of transformation for me, especially in relationship. And I would say it's actually been the making of me in many, many ways. Yeah, in many ways. Because it's always made me look back inside and not attached to any sense of certainty or surety in anything external. Yeah, except when it's there. Except when it's there. So it's always turning back to who am I really? What is the source of my life? What is really important? What really matters to me? Yeah. So yeah, challenging. I'm still challenging sometimes, still challenging, but also understanding how to depersonalize that. I feel the feelings, which undoubtedly are personal, but recognize also that ultimately I have no control over how anybody else responds or reacts to it, ultimately. Hold myself with more kindness and compassion.
Yeah, I being on the receiving end of a no for me, as like you, has been an absolute, probably been the making of me to actually swallow down something that's like a bitter pill of, and then I realized actually the expectation, even the demand, and I want. And this person's going, no, 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 no. And it's that feeling is, I can almost feel it. It's like something going down that is like, I'm having to receive something that is really quite bitter. And I've been in bits around some people's nose in my life, you know, and because there's different ways people do nose, aren't there? And it has, like you say, it's been a very big, massive learning curve for me. And another switch to this is like receiving a yes from somebody that you know really is saying doesn't want to do it. You know, that's been another adventure for me as well. And how that's so easy to take advantage of people like that, you know, and that's been a horrible lesson, you know, when somebody said yes and their whole body language is saying no. And I've said, are you sure? Are you sure? Yes, 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 yes. And then, you know, they don't want to do it. And it's like, you know, what's going on for you? And I know it's the opposite side of me not wanting to please, wanting to not have the person upset, you know. And in the end, it backfired on me a lot, did that one. I got the feedback was, Sunday, you just expect everybody to do exactly what you want, you know, and this person had been doing for the last so many years. And I'd been aware that there was a big fat no in there, and yet here they were saying yes, and I was taking advantage of it. And that was a big lesson as well, you know, and I want, if somebody says yes to me, I want them to be willing, you know, and everything in congruence, you know, and because that's, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'm just reflecting back there to the 90s, kind of when I was going through this process of working with others, but really I was working on myself. And one of the things that for me came out of this whole collapse of a relationship with my husband, and that was fine, was actually going, well, going forwards, I don't want bullshit relationships. You know, and for me, somebody not being able to say yes or not being able to say no when they wanted to say the opposite, or when they want to say whatever it is, you know, to be congruent with themselves. I was really conscious of that. And so somebody who I befriended in sort of the mid to late 90s was an artist, and who became a very dear friend at that time, in Edinburgh. And he was a wonderful guy. And he was great because I knew that he was somebody who was always going to be straight with me. And so I was in a situation one time where, long story, but anyway, I had to ask, could I stay at his place? Which was in the middle of the Edinburgh Festival. And he had a friend staying anyway, you know. I mean, this was like a serious ask, but I'd been completely left in the lurch with accommodation, somebody changed their mind at about 6 o'clock in the evening, which was a bit interesting. And of course, there was going to be no other accommodation. And it was like, Ian was the only person I could think to ask. So I did, but I wouldn't have done for most people, because I know they would have said yes because they just felt guilted into it. But I knew that he'd be honest with me. So I asked him, and he still, you know, he did allow me to stay in, you know, he talked with his friend and he said, look, I'll get back to you, because he didn't say an immediate yes, because he had to think about it himself. But I got what I knew was a genuine okay. And I was very grateful for that. And it was fabulous, because it was just like, I knew it was authentic. I knew there was no issue, you know, which was amazing. That was really special, getting that. Not because I wanted the yes particularly, but because I knew it was genuine.
We're coming up to the end, ladies.
Gosh.
Well,
And I've
one
thought of
interesting,
but
it's ultimately all about perceptions, isn't it? So it's really personal, based on what we've made up about the world and ourselves, and what we're perceiving. As you said, Cindy, when somebody is saying something is kind or not kind, it depends on what the perception is around, and the context of the kindness, and the context for the person saying that. I brought 3 feathers with me. I wasn't sure whether I was going to use them. They are flamingo feathers. Can you see them?
Oh,
So that's one.
beautiful.
And that's another one. And then there's a little one. I'll put those 2 down.
Oh, sweet.
On the, well, I picked them up on the beach on the west coast. And I was just thinking that I have them in my singing bowl. I've got a crystal singing bowl. And I just always remind myself with these feathers that this flamingo is not perceiving one feather bigger or smaller or pinker or paler. This one's very pale, it's just pink at the end here, than the other. It's all part of the flamingo, and it's just doing what it was designed to do, which is live as a flamingo. And I just have to do what I was designed to do, and that is live as a creator, swimming in a sea of love, and learn. And this is the physicality. We live in duality. There cannot be physicality without the masculine and feminine energy, which is what I thought was interesting with pink and blue here in our clothing. And it's that interplay in the dance between the polarities that gives us growth. And the things that hurt are the things that shift us and grow us. My most painful experiences in my life have ended up being the greatest gifts from life. I just definitely did not like the wrapping. So I just thought I'd share that, my feathers with you.
thank
And
you.
sort of,
Didn't like
is
the
it
wrap.
selfish, is it self-care, is it yes, is it no? It just is.
Thank you. Cassandra, have you got any sort of rounding off comments?
No, I'm just feeling very happy to have been part of this lovely conscious conversation, and to not really have come to any solution or outcome, just sharing.
Thank
It's
you.
very, fills my heart.
Yeah, me too. I'm taking away the surety as a framework for difference between certainty. And yeah, anything you want to say, Diane?
The main thing that comes to mind actually was, Cassandra, when you said you'd been lying on the beach and soaking up the sun. And I thought, yeah, the sun's rays, they are so generative of, you know, and they just bring so much healing. It's beautiful. So it's a great way to fill up. And I have to say, I've been blessed with a bit of sunshine today, which is lovely. So enjoyed that. Yeah. And there's so many ways to fill ourselves up. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to press the stop now. And if you haven't caught this live, you can watch the replay in Silver Tent. And if you want to watch it on the YouTube channel, you're very welcome to do so. And we'll see you again another time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.